Will I just give it a shot?
Sure.
Do I say hello? Hi, welcome? I don't know what to do. Okay.
Well, Rory, good to see you. Haven't seen you since last week.
Yeah, it's good to have you back in Ireland, Gary.
It's strange and good to be back all at the same time.
So as a way of quick introduction, myself and Gary started training together, training dogs together, that is 15, 16 years ago. And Gary headed off for a week to go and do some dog training abroad, and 15 years later, he's back with us. And it's great to have him here. I think it might be an enjoyable opportunity, certainly for me, to catch up and have a chat with Gary about his take on all things dog related that he's learnt and picked up along the way. I mean, yeah, it's a big honour for me because I don't think I know anyone with as deep an understanding and appreciation for dog training, if you want, that Gary's accumulated over the years. So yeah, good to have you here.
Good to be here. It's an honour to be here, and it's exciting to hear what you got going on with the Canine Wildlife Project.
Yeah.
You've been busy.
Busy enough, tipping away all the time. Yeah.
That's great.
Prepared a few questions.
Yeah, let's go.
So, the truth about protection dogs, the untold truth about the protection dog industry. We're starting it off late.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough conversation to get on board with. It's one of the biggest scams that have ever been portrayed on the populace when it comes to the canine world that you can imagine. And it's unfortunate that the easiest deceptions are done in plain sight. And that is exactly what's been done in the world of protection dogs, in my opinion.
Like, I get phone calls regularly, like, from people who want protection dogs. And it's such a hard conversation to start with a stranger. You know, it's such a hard thing to know. What is it that they want? Figuring out what they want, figuring out what they're capable of managing, figure out what it is that they expect. It's like where to start, you know?
Like, a big question I'd always ask people is, do you actually need a protection dog to begin with? Are you Joe Smith that's living in a nice neighborhood and you have a very quiet life and nothing out of the ordinary ever happens? Is it something that a friend of a friend has acquired for whatever reason, and now you want to be part of the Joneses and acquire a protection dog for yourself? Without one, the capabilities of managing it, or two, the preparation set up and to even keep it, and three, are you willing to put in the work to actually keep that dog and have it as a part of a cohesive unit within your family? Is an even bigger question to ask. And outside of that, legally, are you prepared to deal with the consequences of owning a protection dog if something goes wrong? Have you done your research of where it's been trained, where the breeding is, or are you just going with the sheep along and picking up what everybody else is doing? These are all things I'd be curious about, and you've seen it, I've seen it. A lot of people that own a protection dog have no business owning one. They're more interested in the status symbol of having a dog that can jump or bite or do whatever is in command that they will never ever utilize beyond that.
Like, you hit on something there, commitment. Like, I mean, for me, like, no one appreciates the level of commitment involved on the part of the owner, potential owner, for making things go right. Like, I'm afraid sometimes when they approach certain training facilities or certain training institutes that they're promised the world. They're promised everything. We'll train the dog, you just take the dog, it'll be cool, you know, it'll work, it'll be trained to do this, that, and people can be made fools of very easily within this industry. Would you think?
Yeah, we're dealing with snake oil salesmen. That's what we are. We're dealing with self-appointed experts, people they'll go off and take a weekend course in dog psychology. They'll join a Schutzhund club or an IPV club or KMPV club or whatever it is. They'll come out to a couple of trials, they'll attend a few sessions, and before you know it, they're an expert dog trainer.
Everyone's an expert.
Everybody's an expert. And it's a very, very dangerous world to get into. If you're going out, it's no different than a monkey could train a dog. You could train a monkey to train a dog. As bad as that sounds. But if your entire purpose of owning this dog is to delve into the mainstream methods of training a canine, whether it be through treats or Kongs or toys or shock collars or whatever it might be, You're not teaching anything. You're bringing it out and you're learning a dressage. You're learning a play, a step-by-step play that once it's altered fails very quickly. Now, the trainers that own these dogs that are training them up for whatever level of protection that they claim they have, the amount of time they spend with that dog is minimal. It's locked in a cage or in a kennel for most of its life. It's brought out. It's thought to be spun up so badly, out of control. It's only controllable in these scenarios within the parameter that it's been trained for. It does its thing and it's locked back up in a cage again. There's no stability. There's no emotion behind it. It's just a tick in the box production line that's very cheap, very quick, and very ineffective.
I see it all the time. Like I think the MO of a lot of these huge companies that have cropped up, especially in the last 5 and 10 years, and there's loads. Like, I mean, everyone seems to be a dog trainer. There seems to be so many. I mean, at this side of the world, you're talking about Ireland and the UK. Like, there is a lot of protection dog companies, so called, and the MO a lot of the time is to take a dog from Eastern Europe or Europe that's got a title in a BH title or a Schutzhund 1 title. It's been reared in a kennel. It's got minimal interaction on a daily basis with normal family life. And it's, like you said, spun up. It's driven crazy for a Kong. It's driven crazy for a sleeve. But then the picture they get when they go to see it, when the unsuspecting public goes to see it, they can be impressed. It can be very impressive.
Extremely impressive.
If they don't know what they're looking at.
If you go on YouTube or TikTok or any of the main social media things and you type in a protection dog, majority of that will show up as videos of KMPV dogs running out and attacking a suit and latching onto it and knocking the decoy over or whatever it is. If you go through the comments, all you'd see is heart eyes, that's amazing, how can you get your dog to do this? And you're sitting there going, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. All you're doing is you're teaching a dog to play fetch. That's it. You're just playing fetch. You're getting a dog obsessed with fetch.
A very intense fetch.
A very intense fetch that has there's no actual reliability in it whatsoever. Even if you break down the training methods that they're using, and I'm sure we're going to touch on a lot of these things later on as well. But if I was to say to you, we're inside a studio, as you can see here, and there's a gym in the background, and there's guys in here training to fight, and if I send a dog out to you and you present a weapon, why in God's name will that dog continue on to go and linear attack you right in opposition of that weapon? Where it's a one trick pony, where it has one limited, very, very use, especially if it's up against a real threat. That dog's not going to get a second opportunity to work again. Yeah. But this is the setup, and this is the standard that they've appointed in themselves without any real experience of what or understanding and what real protection is. Again, it's like Joe Soap down the street saying, do you know what, I wake up today and I have this idea, I'm going to do this to protect myself. And all of a sudden it becomes the norm standard for militaries and police forces across the world. You're like, have you actually thought through what this guy is teaching at all? Realistically, have you put it into real world scenarios and look at the fallacies in what you're doing? Because most people don't. They'll just see the play that's been presented to them and it's a pretty picture and it looks good on paper, but it's faulted on so many deep levels that it's a waste of time, in my opinion.
So keep it simple for me. When I as a potential customer when I'm interested in owning a protection dog, I'm going to go to that field. I'm going to be shown different dogs. What should I be looking for? What am I going to see, and what should I be looking for?
And one of the main things, because I've seen it myself before, is you'd watch these dogs running out and bite the sleeve, and you're like, "Wow, look at that dog! He's got a full mouth bite," and you watch the decoy and like, look how brave this dog is. The decoy's got a stick in his hand and he's beating the dog. One main thing with that is you're teaching and you're looking, if you look at it observably from the standpoint of protection and a fight, are you going to stand there and allow yourself to get punched in the head repeatedly? No, you're not. But by their standpoint, if that dog lets go and disengages that sleeve, it's a coward and it's not good for protection.
Yeah.
But on the same standard, if that dog is good and it's a real life scenario and that's not a stick and that's a blade, that dog is done.
You think, okay, playing devil's advocate, the guy doesn't have a sleeve, sure, he's not going to be able to stab the dog. He's going to be in pain. He's going to have his...
Okay, if it's real protection, and if this is real and the dogs see this as a real protection work, and it's as serious as they present it to be, why is the dog attacking the most protected area of that person's body? All the other areas are not protected. That's how safe this real life protection work is. That the decoy can stand there with only one area of their body protected, everything else exposed, and not be under any risk or threat whatsoever. Would that seem real to you?
To me personally, no. But doesn't it make the dog easier to train?
From what standpoint would that make it easier to train?
Yeah, I'm joking.
So if you look at it all again from this,
Well, I
that
don't-
same standpoint, that decoy can remove his hand from that sleeve and walk away, and the dog will in turn walk away with that sleeve. Now, this is real world training for real life scenarios. That threat's not done. That threat could just turn around and walk away, and the dog has, when it translates into real life scenarios, that dog has got a bit of your sleeve from your jacket or the leg of your pants, and it's torn a bit off, and it's like, I got my reward and I got my toy, and game's over, and I turn around and walk away. Now,
Don't you think it's easier then, like, to explain use of force if he just bites the forearm and holds onto it?
that's the most unnatural. You can argue that that is true, and I would say a dog that's left to fight in a natural fashion, just like we do, because we're thinking creatures. A dog is also a thinking creature. If I send a dog out on target, and my dog makes contact, and the person submits, my dog's not going to continue on with a savage attack to end that life. They can read the intent and the scenario. The main difference is we're not training the dog to do anything that it's not capable of doing, which they are. They are taking the dog outside of his natural resources, and they're teaching it things counter to its genetics and its environment and everything. What we're doing is we're providing it the training ground to say every scenario that you can think of regarding dogs, we're going to provide, so the dog has always the opportunity to evaluate and to think and to process and be aware of its surroundings and its environment and counteract them in real time. We're encouraging the dog to think and adapt in real life scenarios each and every time. That is one key difference that you will not see in what they'd call the protection industry of the canine world, where it's always linear training. Go, bite the sleeve, come back. Make sense?
But so, by that argument, like, I see it online all the time, people saying, but sure, German Shepherds will protect naturally. Why bother training them?
So that would be a good point, and it is one that has very limited truth. So if we talk about German Shepherd's dog, we're not talking about the same German Shepherd's dogs that were.
Okay.
We're talking about a bred down, bastardized version of what was.
You're saying that is the situation with the German Shepherd's dog today?
Yes.
Yeah.
So even if you look at their breeding practices, which I'll save that topic for later, the German Shepherd's dog now it goes by confirmation of look. The German Shepherd's dog was never intended to be confirmation of look. It was confirmation of character, which is something that they don't even consider when breeding German Shepherd's dogs now. They don't even consider the character. Their consideration relies in, will this pup chase a con? And they'll argue, if its prey drive is high enough and we can focus it on this, then it can be successful in the protection dog industry. Their character has no play in it. But to go back and answer your question, you need to have a relationship with that dog. You need something outside of what they deem as, oh, but my dog loves me. That just because your dog's by your side, just because he's the unfortunate creature is attached to your hip against his will for the most part, and you feed it and you house it and you look after, that is not a relationship. And I'd argue to go to the extreme standpoint, like you could kidnap someone and keep him in your house for 5 years and feed him and water him. They have no choice but to be with you.
And put a collar on their neck.
Put a collar on them, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're as good as doing that. And if you're going through the training techniques that they're doing of the treats and this, and you see all the comments of, look, that dog loves their owner so much. No, the dog's fucking hungry.
Yeah.
The dog doesn't get fed.
Food drive.
Yeah, food drive. He doesn't get fed until it comes from your hand. So the dog's staring at you, and again goes back to, if this was real life protection and that dog is supposed to be situationally and environmentally aware, why isn't he looking out for a single threat? His focus is on you the entire time.
Yeah.
Well, is there
So you're
scenarios-
talking about focused healing. You see this,
Yeah.
and again, we're going back to what is impressive to the naked eye. What is impressive to the potential client who goes to the field and sees the dog wrapped around the handler's knee, staring upward toward them, and that looks impressive. Yeah,
It looks good, but if I'm walking down to you and I'm taking out a weapon out of my pants or my pocket or whatever it is, and I'm going to launch an attack on you either from the front or the behind or the side, if that dog's staring up at you, he has no idea what's going on.
zero awareness.
Zero awareness whatsoever. But is there cases where I've seen and heard of dogs that have protected their owners without training? Yes, that does happen. That is a rarity. It's not the norm.
Yeah.
by any stretch of the imagination. And a key thing to mention, or to kind of go for back, that does happen. But again, the key difference being is when I take a pup, we are putting myself and that pup under very controlled stress management. So if and when that day comes, it is not a stressor to my dog. Fight and flight will not come into the equation. I've built a relationship with this animal that its natural desire is to defend me, and my natural desire is to defend him. And we go through the scenarios again, which we'll probably touch on later, of we're not a man and dog. I don't own you. We're a cohesive unit together. You are attached to me, and I am as fair and as kind to you as necessary and needs to be. And likewise, you in turn are as fair and understanding with me, because you see things I don't see, and I see things you don't see. So together, you guide me in an unnatural world, and I guide you in a very natural world, which is completely alien to you. So my main job as a handler is to have you be a good citizen in a world that is completely alien to how you're geared to think. So if and when an attack does happen, God forbid it ever does, that relationship is deep and is profound, and that dog will respond in a natural manner, which will be to defend, I won't say one of its own, but what it's spiritually attached to, which would be myself and my family. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. And I fear sometimes when you hear these stories of dogs
It gives a
defending their handlers
very false sense of
or
security.
owners, sometimes I think it comes from a delusion. Like people see something that they want to see, and the
Oftentimes-
story gets changed a little bit in their heads every time they tell it, and all of a sudden it's this hero dog that actually all it did was hackle up, bark, and it was ready to fucking bolt 2 seconds later. But the
Yeah, I'm not.
stress kind of
I wish I was exaggerating here, but I'm not. I've heard a story one time of a gentleman that said his dog took a rope and tied it around a tree. Yeah. So people warp the reality quite a bit. Now,
yeah.
I'd say there is dogs that would come out and they'll hackle up and bark up and present a show of aggression, and for 90% of the populace, that's enough.
That's enough. Yeah.
But there is that 10% in the world who will see and challenge that and say, okay, I'm prepared to go ahead and see how far this is going to go. And when the dog is met with stress like that,
Out of there.
out of there. And that happens, again, bar the rare exception 100% of the time. And we'll even get into Schutzen dogs and KMPV dogs and police dogs and all these kind of things. They'll go out and bite. But when they're met with a force that's willing to fight back, they turn tail real fast and they run real quick.
Sure.
And the reason being is they're brought up in a system that always encourages, this is not real. You always win. There's no stress. And that's a key word you hear in modern dog training. Positive reinforcement. No negativity whatsoever. Protection is negative. Combat is negative. Fights are negative. I don't enjoy fighting. I don't like getting punched in the head.
Not particularly. No.
I don't know anybody that really does, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
So when that dog is reared constantly to never face real pressure, and you see videos of they're saying, oh, we're putting stress on the dogs here now, we have bite suits walking around and we're banging noises, and if you watch the videos and you look and pay attention to what you see, the dog isn't paying attention to that because it's fixated on the Kong that's in the handler's hand here or behind the back.
Or it's about to be zapped.
Or it's about to be zapped, which is the e-collar. So when you take a canine like this, that's training these methods, and you have that guy that starts putting fight into that dog, and dogs read intent. They have a lot of intelligence, and they're geared not like us. They can read intent far beyond what we can ever even comprehend. So when they meet a force and they feel that force is coming at them, saying, "I'm going to see this through," and
For the first time, because it didn't happen on the
it
field.
never happened. And there's people that will come out and meet that dog and say, I'm in this for blood. I'm in this to take your life because people get desperate, they're on the run, they need to escape, whatever it is, they don't want to go to prison.
Be drink and drugs involved these days,
alcohol
especially.
and
alter
narcotics,
people's
it's
intent.
perceptions and even their pain tolerance. And you will, if you go ahead and look, you will find countless videos of dogs that are trained to attack the forearm and hang on. And the guy is so out of it on drugs, he's just walking down the street and paying no attention to that dog hanging off him. And people are
Yeah.
standing there going, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Oh shit, what do you do now? Because you're never prepared for anything like this. You're linear 24/7, even in how you think and how you apply yourself and the application of that dog. You're stuck inside a box that never changes. And unfortunately, that dog will always stay there with you as long as you're like that.
On this subject, I can't let it go on people's delusions, right? So I had a Doberman brought to me some time back, and they told me this story, you know, about their mother's neighbour's Doberman who, you know, they went on holidays and they left the two Doberman in the house, and they were in the yard, and there was a neighbour going to feed them. Like once they would go and feed the dogs, and they noticed after 2 days that there was only one of either of the dogs coming to be fed. And after a week away, they came back to find the dogs were taking turns in minding a burglar who'd broken into the house and keeping him pinned there until the owners returned.
Okay.
And I was laughing because it must have been the seventh time I heard the story from different places, from different people at different parts of the country. Like, so it's like this urban myth that was going around that, you know, I was laughing and they were saying, "What are you laughing for? Do you not think it's true?" And I said, "It might be, but I've heard that story like from so from so many different places at this stage. It's getting ridiculous. Over the space of 15 years, I've heard that story."
The more likely scenario is the dog barked, the guy got scared and stayed there.
Yeah.
And each time he went to move, the dogs would jump back and surprise and bark again, and the guy, not knowing animals,
Yeah.
became scared and kind of huddled up in the spot and was worried he was going to get bit.
Yeah.
That would be the most likely scenario I could see occurring in something like that.
Yeah.
I think even to touch on the subject of Dobermans, people buy them a lot, and this is going to be controversial ones, but Doberman do not exist. Louis Doberman took his breeding to the grave. He bred for himself. He didn't supply him anywhere else. He
kept no record of his breeding. He didn't do it in association with other people.
No, he took it all to the grave. Now, you can replicate a look quite easily.
But they haven't done that. If you look at pictures of the Doberman from 100 years ago,
They're
it's a
entirely different.
new breed. They haven't even replicated a look. That look is evolving currently with the huge enlarged chest,
Yep.
massive stops on the heads and stuff. It doesn't even look like one of
Looks nothing
Herr
like
Doberman's pictures anymore.
And again, even if you go back and look at the German Shepherds dog, you would have seen wide coat German Shepherds and brindle German Shepherds and floppy ear German Shepherds. It was never based on the look. It was based on the characteristics of the breed, which is something that people don't even take into consideration these days anymore. They just go on, you look like you're supposed to be, so you must be what you are.
Sure.
And
Sure. And I mean, that's indicative of the age in which we live. And I think it's replicated in the marketing of a lot of protection dog companies, because they've got fantastic photography of these, I won't say beautiful, but these long-haired or fluffy-looking, like windswept pictures, and the dogs in the picture with the kids and the flowers. And there's a marketing element with regards making it look a certain way.
And then your eyes scan through the picture and you get down to the back end and the poor dog is a cripple. Not capable of any kind of work that would require any bit of vigorous exercise or ability whatsoever. It's
unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate. If you were to ask what I believe in, I believe that it was something that was put in place many, many years ago, very purposefully, so that people would not be able to replicate the dogs of the times gone by. Very, very hidden away, very secretive on purpose. So again, John down the street and his complete lack of understanding couldn't destroy it unintentionally. It was intentionally broken down and destroyed, so the people who kept knowledge behind are able to recall it when necessary.
I wonder, I think people would have done a great job of ruining the breeding, even if this plan wasn't in place. I think people would have destroyed the breeding of the dogs capably on their own.
100%. Even if you look at anybody now, it's stud for rent, stud for rent, stud for rent, stud for rent. Nobody asks about the bitch.
Yeah.
Nobody sits down and says, well, what they do say is, I've got a German Shepherd, you have a German Shepherd, let's breed them and have German Shepherds.
Yeah.
Again, nobody breaks down into the character of the dog to see if these dogs are actually matchable.
Sure. There's
Not at
very
all.
little emphasis on the female.
And very little emphasis on the character, again, as I keep on banging on about.
Sure,
But
sure.
the bitch is the one that's going to sit with those pups for 4 to 6 weeks. She's the one that's going to be correcting them. She's going to be the one that's teaching them. how to interact and how to behave and what's appropriate and inappropriate. She's the one teaching him how to be clean. All these things she's imprinting onto him. The stud comes in and he's a sperm donor and he's out of the picture. So realistically, why are you looking at the male?
Yeah.
When it's the bitch is the important one, but everybody has it switched in reverse, and even from that one misinterpretation of how breeding practice should be done, it's already off to a downward slope of
Messed
destruction.
everything up already.
Already. Like, what is the saying? 100 years of good breeding could be ruined by one bad breeding. And even if you ask the men around that we know, even terrier men who are big into their terriers and the hunting lifestyle, they're still very aware of breeding practices.
They're still sorry.
They're still very aware of the good breeding
Right.
practices. But it's the general populace, for some reason,
Yeah.
who call themselves experts in the field of protection work,
Yeah,
are completely oblivious to it all.
sure. And I think maybe on that subject, like how you're talking about the pups and the influence that the mother has on the litter, like what's the ideal rearing then for a dog? What's the ideal kind of upbringing for a dog?
Are you
It's-
talking
so I suppose what I'm thinking of is en masse dogs are produced, they're reared in kennels, they're brought out, they're trained with prey drive, with with movement, and maybe that's reflected. You see a lot of videos now that everyone has a mobile phone in their hands. You see a lot of videos of police dogs targeting their own handler.
Yep.
Recently, multiple videos of that online. Dogs targeting the nearest person to them, regardless of whether it's someone wearing a matching uniform to the guy holding their lead. So, like, what's gone wrong? Like, where?
Society has now somehow got it into its mind that animals are not a thinking being.
I've heard that. I've heard that from very, we'll say, like, highly respected dog trainers. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
in military unit.
I won't be shy to say that these people have never stepped outside and looked at nature clearly once in their lives. Never actually, they might have looked with their eyes, but they've never observed and taken it in. I'll use an example. I hope it ties in. It's not really related to dogs, but we talk about, if you ask majority of dog trainers, what does my dog roll in feces?
Yes,
What's the most common answer you get?
I hear that they are trying to mask their own scent in order to not give away. You're supposed to cover up their own scent when hunting.
Yeah,
I've heard something else regularly too, and it's so silly, and I can't even remember what it is. What's the other most common reason people give for their dogs
that would be
rolling
the
in
main one.
foxes? Is that the main one?
That's the main one.
There's
I hear.
another one I hear regularly. I'm going blank now, but yeah,
If you remember, we'll come back to it.
yeah.
But if you look and you say, okay, it's not only a dog that does it, it's actually all predators that do it.
Okay,
All predators do it. So if it's to mask their own scent, would you not think, if you're a believer in evolution being so prominent and so amazing, would you not think over this length of time that the antelope would have not learned to go out and roll in lion shit and mask itself from the lion?
yes, definitely.
But why hasn't that occurred then?
I don't know.
So people won't stop to actually look at what's going on. They
Yeah.
just come up with a very simple solution that satisfies their own simple mind, and that's what they run with. The reason the wolf or the coyote or the dog or the lion or whatever it may be will go out and roll in the feces of another animal is because it's caught something in that scent that it wants to eat, it wants to hunt. So whatever sickness that it recognizes in one, it's consuming a natural antibody because we're the only animal that hunts the prize. Every other animal in nature will go and hunt the sick and consume it, and that's their natural way of.
Sick, the old, the weak, and the
That's their
lame.
natural immunity to. That's how they self-vaccinate, basically. And second point, if that animal rolls, pardon my French, I've said crap a few times. But if that animal rolls
Leave you off.
in the feces of another animal, when it starts to track that animal and it loses it and it needs to cross-reference, what does it do? It sniffs itself and it regains the track again and continues on to hunt. But nobody will stop and actually examine for what's going on. And you'll even have the likes of David Attenborough coming on, giving a talk and something similar things, and they miss exactly what they're looking for. Entirely. So for me, when I say what's the best rearing for a pup, to understand the world around you before you even step in and take a living, breathing creature that has a mind of its own, desires of its own, thoughts of its own, actions of its own. It's a completely independent creature that I'm bringing in and attaching to myself. And now I want every ability that that animal has to flourish and come to its full potential. And I do not want to hinder that in any way whatsoever. So everything that that creature is capable of doing, it does not need me to train it how to do. I can't put my nose to the ground and track a man. The dog can.
Yeah.
There's all these amazing abilities that somehow people have got into their minds that they've trained this dog to do. They've trained it to do nothing. If anything, they've counter-trained the dog's natural abilities out of it. All I'm looking to do is I want to provide, again, an opportunity for you to think, process, adapt, and overcome in a manner that I can understand and you can understand to me. And my job as a handler is to communicate when and where I want these traits present.
It's so, even amongst dog trainers, you'll hear people say like, "Oh, you shouldn't have an ego in dog training. You shouldn't have an ego in dog training," and then they're sitting around saying, "How are we going to get this dog to bite?"
And the next question you have is, how do you get this dog to out?
Yeah. That's secondary, surely.
Yeah. The two questions always follow because I'm asked the same one. How do I get my dog to bite? And then how do I get my dog to out?
But that you have to come up with this plan of back tying the dog, putting a movement in front of it to get it into a certain state of mind before it'll bite. That kind of brings us on to the subject of equipment, and we've touched on it already, but like there's so many dogs absolutely obsessed with equipment. And again, to the untrained eye or to the potential client who isn't devoted their life to studying dogs, but who is interested in purchasing a protection dog, they see the dog, bite the sleeve, they're told there's no difference between a sleeve and an arm, that's just there for good training.
Difference.
There's a big difference.
Massive difference. It's so deep. Like, this might be a very silly analogy to put it, but it's one of the best ones you could put. Is you, Rory Hennebree, are going to come launch and attack me. Hang on, I'm going to sit in the car and you can attack me from the outside of the car and I'm going to be inside going, ow, 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 you got me. Do you believe for 1 second that you've got me? No,
No,
don't.
of course not, no.
Do you think the dog knows that it cannot get through that suit?
It's playing a game.
It's playing a game, and it knows. And again, contrary on how you know this is feet are available, fingers are available, face, neck is available. The dog can go under the suit into the stomach. It can do all these things that it does not do. And one of the key things you notice, if you take a dog that's not trained in these methods, like the methods that we use, for example, if I send a dog on you and you're wearing a bite suit, my dog's going to go right down to your feet. Boom. It will hit your feet. You come down to accommodate that and boom, right up in your face. It does not want that suit. It will not want it. If it tries to bite, it will spit it out because it knows it's completely ineffective and it's not real and it wants nothing to do with it. And that is, again, you do not want an animal that is equipment focused because it's of no use to you whatsoever. And one of the scenarios of being, if you take a Schutzhund dog, stick a guy in the sleeve, the dog's going to be fixated on that. Now you take a real trader guy that comes around and he's carrying a knife or a weapon or whatever it is, he's got no equipment on and he's just walking down. The dog is ignoring the intent of the real attack that's coming and it's fixated on the equipment.
Sure.
There's no protection in that whatsoever. Zero. A dog should be able to look and say, don't want that, don't want this, don't want this. This is where the threat lies. And even if I can't see it, I can look at my dog and say, what's up with that guy?
Yeah.
And my dog will take it in and watch the occurrence of how he's moving, and he'll get my attention and say, okay, we need to keep an eye on this. We need either A, position ourselves away from a potential threat, or B, evaluate our surroundings and look at a way out. But this does not occur in the standard sports protection, real world protection, things that people like to claim that they are.
So on a practical level, what should I look for? What do I look for when I ring people up? What do I ask them? Like if I ring up any one of the dozens of protection dog companies that advertise online, what are the questions I should ask myself? What should I ask them? What should I be looking for if I go to the training field or the training facility? Run and see, does the dog run after you?
Because it's such a saturated market of self-proclaimed experts that it is almost impossible to filter out. So again, for me personally, anybody that does any form of sport, and the dangerous part is people will claim that they do not do sport, that it's real life protection, and you watch the methods, and they're all sports based methods. Every single one of them is sports based methods. Like one of the key things I'd ask is I talk about, they'd say we're breeding, we have a breeding going on, and I want to breed a pup, or there's pups available. And we've bred a male and a female dog. They're both Schutzen tree, whatever it is. Champions and this, that, the other, and you'll go and see the
grandsons
pups.
of champions, and
then they'll say that one's picking a litter, and that one, this one's like I've heard it a million times. That one's picking a litter. This one's not going to be as hot as these ones, and that one's going to be kind of more of a show one. And people will lap it up. And they say, "Oh, this is amazing." I'd stop it and say, "Why is there so much inconsistency in your breeding?
right,
If your breeding is so tried and true, and your methods are so fantastic." And you're only breeding champions and they're all trade dogs, why are you not producing? Every one of that litter should be capable and of the same work. There shouldn't be a difference between one and the other. And how do you know that runt isn't going to outpace the now pick of the litter in a week's time? Mm-hmm. You don't. You have no idea. I wish I had that skill that I could walk into somewhere, and I'm going to use another man's words because they're not my own, that I could walk into a labour ward and say, he's going to be a doctor. That's going to be a dentist. That's going to be a mechanic.
sure,
Like, nobody can do that. But somehow, these guys that claim to have such consistent breeding practices can't produce one consistent litter. So even from that alone, I would be like, I'm out of here. I'm done. No.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many things. It's
murky
so
water.
corrupt.
Yeah,
It's so corrupt. And like, there's dogs out there. If everybody's saying, I'd rather buy a dog from a farmer who hasn't got a single paper than anything that comes with a paper, because they're not worth using the toilet.
yeah.
They're literally not.
And I think there's this big misnomer, if you want, that I hear all the time. He's from a working litter.
Yes.
Working lines. This is a working bred German Shepherd. And what I see is dogs that for generations have been competing in sport.
Yep, which is not work.
And I don't think prepares dogs very well for work, whether it's genetically or by the training. And you've got generation dogs. Let's go away from German Shepherds or Schutzen for a minute, and you can see it in the Spaniel trials.
Yep.
So there's dogs winning ribbons and winning trophies in field trials that you can't get to hunt in cover. Dogs that won't go into bushes, spaniels, that by their very nature should be out going through rivers, into ditches, through cover. But because they're looking for very exact behaviours and very, dare I say, prey-driven behaviours, they breed the highest prey drive with the highest prey drive and the highest scoring dogs with the highest scoring dogs, and they end up with dogs that do produce, like you'll always see nervous dogs that won't walk on a lead down the street because they're scared of their own shadow, and you'll see dogs that have no capacity to be out in the field in the dirt being shot over and going undercover, going through ditches and briars or brambles, but they're still held up as champions, and they're called working dogs.
Champion in whose mind?
It's got the ribbons, like, it's got the trophies. It must be a champion.
Okay, like, not to bash anybody, but like that Australian lady that competed in the breakdancing.
Yeah.
She made an absolute fool of herself on national television.
Yeah.
And of the country. But what did she do? She self-appointed herself as the governing body in Australia.
Did she?
And then she voted
brilliant.
herself to represent them. So she is the expert.
Mad respect.
So there's no difference in what they're doing. You have a bunch of guys get together. And, I like dogs. You like dogs?
Yeah.
Oh, so my dog's a great dog, don't you think? They're circle jerking each other. Is a very rude way to put it, but that's what's happening. They're sitting in a room, stroking each other's egos, and you sit there. If you took them out to the field, the main problem with this, and to get away from it, you see it in the likes of search and rescue a lot. You have a lot of search and rescue organisations that have never spent a night out in the field ever.
Yeah.
They have no idea what it is to go outside in the field and work.
Yeah.
And to actually perform a search and rescue operation. None whatsoever. But they like to feel good and they like to feel useful. and they'll get together on a Sunday or Saturday and practice for a couple hours and their nice clean clothes and get back into a nice warm vehicle
Sure.
and drive away and feel
Sure.
like they've accomplished something.
Clock off at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, and then they'll pat themselves on the back and say, I have a search and rescue dog, it's a working dog, you know?
Yeah.
It's simple minds are amused by very simple things. And unfortunately, this is the world we're living in where to find anything that has any true purpose or any true character regarding the dog world is...
difficult.
You're
It's a
really,
minefield.
Yeah, you're really in a minefield. And you're better off, again, I would rather buy a dog from a farmer than from a breeder. Because at least that farmer has had the parents out in the field. He has spent time with them out. They have been exposed to the sun, the rain, the cold, the muck, the other animals, the harshness, reality of working on farm life.
Sure.
They are exposed to that. And if I said to you,
They're hardier.
the hardier, if you raise your son in a bubble and you never expose him, then he's going to grow up weak. And then when he has children, he's probably going to do the same thing. And you're producing a weakness that's been passed down from generation to generation. And now, for someone to think that that's not the same with a dog is absolutely nonsensical.
Mm-hmm.
If you breed,
Underfloor heating in the kennels.
yeah, if you breed a dog that
Sterile
spun
conditions.
spun up by food, Kongs, treats, toys, whatever it is, do you not think that bitch is passing it on to that pup?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do that again, do you think they're not passing on to those pups? You're breeding away the dog's ability for natural thought process. You're turning it into exactly what you think it is, a dumb, responsive animal. And that's all you will ever have. Never capable of ever doing anything. And Joe, that might suit you because you get to sit there and I've went out to this square soccer field and everybody clapped when my dog went and picked up the dumbbell.
Yeah.
That was amazing work.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's so impressive with picking up a dog picking something up off the floor?
And what use is it? Sure.
They'll argue is, oh, well, if that's a revolver or something, we get into these things and the dog will pick it up in return. Madness.
Yeah.
Absolute madness.
It's a bit abstract.
It's a very abstract. Why can't you send your dog out to hunt the man, find the man, apprehend him, and then backtrack and find the object afterwards? Like,
Yeah.
or can you not read the dog's indication to know when it's hunting or when it's scenting out an object or tracking a man? Can you not distinguish those two things? But they can't because they never do. They don't even believe that a dog can track. And instead they have to believe that they need to teach a dog to track food. And then somehow that translates into tracking him. What people don't realize, and you know this as well as I do, the first track a dog ever does is when it comes out of the womb. The bitch cleans the pup off, cleans the sack off. And
His eyes closed.
with his eyes closed. And the first thing that pup does is tracks to the bitch's teeth. That's the first track a pup will ever do. And you're telling me now that you can get involved and better teach that animal that has evolved through millennia to track? When you yourself, if I went running into that bush line, you would never find me.
Sure.
But you're going to teach this animal how to do it.
By stamping down the grass and
Yeah.
dropping hot dog for a hungry dog.
But at the same time, if, again, I went out into that bush and I left sign there, you can be guaranteed you do not know how to read that sign to find me. But so you're somehow signing... It's the most ridiculous things there's no logic behind any of it.
Sure.
But people will never stop long enough to sit down and say, oh, wait a minute. I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
No, you have not because you've never asked. You never actually looked at what you're doing or buying. Now people will argue. They'll come back and argue, well, the food in the Kong is the distraction so that the distraction becomes the distraction and we have a safe and solid dog and all this kind of good stuff. If that's the road you want to go down to make yourself feel better, be my guest. But you take that dog out and you put it in real life work. And people will argue, yeah, there's Schutzhund dogs out and it'll become police dogs. Yes, they have. They have done it. But the dog works despite the training. The dog goes out there, not always, but
Occasionally
it goes out.
It's good in spite of its training.
Yeah. Realizes what's going on and reverts back to its natural form.
Wow.
It goes in and gets a harsh dose of reality and goes, nuh-uh, I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
And then it starts to work like an animal. Then it starts to counter and move and flank and attack and cutting out sections of tracks that are necessary. That does happen, but it's not often.
Yeah.
But it does happen when people will point and say, well, look at this. there's these, and then there's the dime a dozen other ones where we couldn't complete the track because they must have went off the hard surface, they must have went on a hard surface and all these things, and they'll make excuses away for their own inability to actually communicate or train a dog. You've counter-trained that dog. You've trained its natural ability out of it by refusing to acknowledge its natural form, and all of a sudden the dog is as distorted as you are, and it can't smell in concrete. Or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that is most scenario case. Most of all, or you get into the police work, you see the canine handler always has to be in front, and the teams can't go with him, or he has to stay behind because the dog is so wound up and has such an inability to assess and think. It just starts lashing out at everybody that's around it.
It's going to target movement
Yeah, it's just a liability.
because that's its foundation.
Its foundation is everything moves and catch what moves.
Yeah.
And when they see that fast, aggressive movement going on, they just start snapping at it, trying to get it. And that's why they're always sit back and the dog's too wound up, and they'll try present it as a positive.
Yes, yes. I come across that often. There's
Yeah.
always an explanation. There's always an argument for that.
It's a constant thing of, trying to present it in a way that's a positive thing to make the dog sound tougher or making it sound like it's a toughness thing or whatever it
Especially
is.
if you're trying to sell it, right?
Yeah, and it's it's a very dangerous methodology to be in, and that's why they're not kept in homes for the large part. They're kept in kennels.
Yes.
They can't really be out in public without a prop present to distract them from being in public.
Sure.
There has to be. There's always a failsafe. Always the failsafe is there, and the failsafe is the Kong in the pocket or whatever it is to always keep ready, so I can have the illusion of control over that animal. That's all it is. It's all an illusion. From no matter what aspect you look at it, is a complete and utter illusion.
Dogs and kids.